live.
Yay. Hi, everybody. I'm here with Kevin Benevides, the owner of The Canvas Within. Hey, Kevin, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Not a problem. Thank you so much, Melissa, for having me on and this opportunity to have a conversation and supporting the women in your community.
Absolutely. So there'll be multiple people on here right now. We're in the Women Empowered group on Facebook, which is private. We're also in Raise the Bar Wellness, my business page, and on my YouTube channel. So, hey, everybody, I'm glad that you're here. Even if you're watching this later, you're welcome to participate in questioning in the comment section or commenting. It's totally welcome. We're open to having conversations. So hopefully some of you will have something to say and we can get into that. But Kevin, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Just the basics about your life and what drew you to being a transformational coach.
For sure. I'm just finishing off sharing our post on all my pages so that more and more people see this.
Yay.
So just give me 1 second.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. We're just setting up technical stuff, but we're about to launch into this conversation.
So yeah, no, I shared it on my personal, and for some reason it's not going to my other page. But yes, so sorry. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me on. So you asked who am I basically, and how did I start into transformational coach? So who am I? So my name is Kevin Benevides. Married, have 3 children, and my life drastically changed back in 2013 when I had a run of about 6 months of severe anxiety, depression that came with it, and emotional pain that all stemmed from my father getting really, really sick, almost dying. And so a lot of stuff just came up, and I was always an anxious person. Always dealt with anxiety, not even knowing that's what it was. I just thought that's who Kevin was until that point. Was very unhealthy in many ways until that point. And so after those 6 months, through those 6 months, I started to take care of myself. And then at the 6-month point, I was like, okay, like I need to do something. I had like a heart monitor strapped to my chest because so many complications. I was like, something has to change. And so I went to someone who turned into my mentor and helped me through learn mindfulness meditation, and helped me take like an inner journey and find out the core why I was the way that I was, why I was experiencing what I was experiencing, and how to move through that. That opened the door to sort of spirituality, personal development, personal growth. And within a couple of months, my anxiety's levels were way much lower, and I was starting to become a new man. Like I felt like I was a whole new person, and I just became passionate, just like totally passionate about everything spirituality, everything personal growth. And so I just delved into this whole world, and I haven't stopped since then. So since I started The Canvas Within, which was to share my journey through anxiety and what I was going through and what I was learning. And through the years I've been sharing, been very active online, sharing my journey. And then in the last couple of years, jumped into the entrepreneurial space a couple of years ago, tried to get into coaching. Life happened, had to stop. But then at the end of last year, I made the full commitment to myself that I was going to jump into coaching full time. And so that's what I've been doing since at the beginning of the year. Personal growth is my passion. It's what I love to do, and helping people, transform their life from the inside out. So yeah, that's sort of a short condensed version of how I got here. So yeah, this is my life. This is what I love to do and help people.
Great. It's interesting because there's a stereotype among women that, and it's not a stereotype I enjoy. I think it's very limiting, but it's a stereotype where we think men don't work on their stuff, that men don't face their feelings, they don't take responsibility for their actions. And there's a lot of anger, in the female women community about this kind of a thing. And it hurts to watch it because I've also been in that boat too, where I've been hurt and abused in different ways by men. But I know that men are hurting too. And I know that that's why women are getting hurt. That's one of the reasons why women are getting hurt by men. So when I hear you talk about, facing your own challenges and kind of getting into that, as a part of life, it helps me and hopefully some other women here understand that men do work on their stuff sometimes. What do you think are some things that keep men from facing their own issues and working on them?
So why don't men face their own stuff?
When they don't, why don't they?
Why don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Because one, ignorance. Two is not even knowledge that they have to, or they're afraid of even confronting themselves. One thing that I've been saying for a while, especially in this year, talking directly to men, is that the facade of a man being so strong and the confidence that they try to exude it into the external world, but meanwhile internally they're weak. They're very, very weak, and that's why they have to have so much power over man or other men or women or the world or whatever, is because internally they're actually like really weak. Internally they have a lot of things that are bothering them, a lot of things that they haven't faced up to, and so they don't actually have that. They have the courage, but they've never mustered up the courage to face up on themselves. And a part of it too is like, I can think about to myself in the past, I just didn't know any different. It was just, I was the way I was. Life was okay. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't amazing. Like, I was overweight, very unhealthy. I didn't know how to communicate properly with my wife. Various things, obviously, anxiety, all these things. But I just I had no interest in growing or in changing. I was just the way I was. Like, there was no motivation or inspiration or motivation to change. This is just the way it is, and I'll just continue going on this way. And so unfortunately, I believe that a lot of men, because we're not open to the personal growth world in our own selves and looking at it in the external, searching for the stuff. We cut off a little bit, sorry. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm patiently.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So so I was just saying, was like, yeah, because we don't open ourselves up to that. So it only comes sometimes is when we're at rock bottom, right? When we hit rock bottom, when something major happens in our life, where it's like, oh shit, like I really have to, like, whether it's a divorce, whether it's illness, whether, or separation or something happened in their life, or like myself, where like anxiety overtook my life and all these things. And it's like, I couldn't run away from it anymore. Only when you're in that spot, and this is not just for men, I think for women too, but men more so, because we never opened our eyes to this other stuff before, then that's when it's like, oh, okay, like what do I have to do to make a better change? And so then you start opening yourself up to, okay, this or that, or it could be just fitness, could just be your physical health or whatever, but at least you're opening yourself up. I think for women, where women are more open to having discussions with their friends about what they're going through and how to get better, and they're more open to the idea of growth, of improving upon themselves. So yeah, I think that's the thing of it. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to like, they have to hit almost not rock bottom, but like something major has to happen in their life where it's like, if I don't change, I'm going to lose this, or I've already lost it. So how am I not going to lose more? Right. So I have to make a change.
Right. It's almost like, the structure has to crack to open up the possibility of something new. When I hear you talk about how men sometimes don't work on themselves because they just don't see it as a possibility, what I hear is, that men and women have been taught to be a certain way. And so maybe a man might on some level know that he has some emotional stuff, or maybe he sees himself being abusive or uncommunicative, but there's no written down script for how a man faces those things. There's no.
Exactly. And again, it stems back. Yeah, there's no example from the past, from their past, to show what to do with this, right? And again, it comes back to like, what did we define to be as a man? And we're not supposed to show certain emotions. We're not supposed to show that we're weak. We're not supposed to show that we're struggling with things, right? Because we're supposed to be strong and the provider. And so I'm not supposed to show all these things to anybody. So I just stuff it, and I stuff it, and I stuff it forever, for a long, long time. When in fact, that's the worst thing that they can do. And so that's what happens. That's how I see it play out.
Right. And it's interesting too to think that showing emotions is weak, because it's such a strength to be able to cry, or to admit that you're sad, or you're confused, you don't know what to do. In the self-work, the self-help world, these are your power moments, when you come into contact with what's creating your discomfort. Whoa, okay, I see it now. And it's just crazy to me that in our society, we see those emotions as weak. I mean, in general we do, but especially for men, especially when a man comes into contact with those emotions.
Yeah, that's like one of my simple main messages now, is like, being vulnerable, opening up, is actually a huge strength. Strength has nothing to do with the physical appearance. It doesn't have to do with the size of your biceps or the size of your chest. Strength has to do with how can you actually open up and share your heart with somebody else and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm struggling with. This is the emotions that I'm having, and I can actually process that in healthy ways, because men know how to process certain emotions, but in doing so, we hurt everybody else in our life, male or female, doesn't really matter. But we don't know, in a sense of like, in a generalized statement, don't know how to actually express these things in healthy ways. And even crying, which won't hurt anybody, but for the man, will feel like they're hurting themselves, because they're not living up to the standard of what they were taught, right? And so it's being able to even cry, right? Like being able to just go up to your partner and just cry, or by yourself and cry, but not shying away from it, or like not saying, oh, I know I've never cried. And two, just being able to be open, right? Like just being able to be open with yourself and others about what you're feeling. And so that's another little, that's a whole other avenue that a lot of men have to learn for the first time, is how do I deal with these emotions that nobody's ever taught me how to deal with. So
There's
it's a huge important part of it.
It seems like it. Yeah, I can see that. I have a bunch of things coming up as you're talking. I'm seeing, as you're talking, I'm seeing the system between men and women, because so you're painting the picture of a man who doesn't feel comfortable crying. He doesn't feel comfortable expressing these supposed weak emotions. And then you flip it and you have women who are expected to cry. We are expected to be weak. I mean, I had an ex-husband who didn't like the fact that I didn't cry, and that was one of his problems in the relationship. It's the opposite. So when women are expected to break down and expected to be soft, but men aren't, I think there's like an underlying almost lack of connection there, where you've got this one character who's the female or the feminine role, who's expected to have those emotions, and then the male role who's expected not to. I just see resentments. I see, things coming up that maybe even the woman, and in my experience, maybe sometimes the woman comes to the man to fall apart, and he's uncomfortable with that because he needs to fall the F apart, but he can't because he's holding space for this woman.
Yeah. And also he can't be there for the woman because he can't be there for himself.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, how can I hold this? How can I hold this for this person when I'm uncomfortable with my own emotions? If I'm
Right.
uncomfortable with my own things, how can I actually support you properly?
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so
Well,
that's the disconnection, right? Yeah, we trigger each other's stuff, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
So then if the woman is
Yeah.
breaking down and the man really needs to do that, it's almost like, no, get away from me. I can't see you crying because I'm going to break down, but I am a man and I can't. It brings up an example of something that I've heard from many women, and it's when they have been in abusive relationships sometimes and they start to show an emotion or cry or something, and then the man will lash out at them. What I see happening is he is probably really hurting and he can't handle being in that
True.
atmosphere,
Yeah.
where she's falling
100%.
apart. So it's interesting because it's like we can't get out of that. If we're in heterosexual or homosexual relationships, there's masculine and feminine roles that we've fallen into in the world. And some of it is about power, and some of it is about falling apart versus not falling apart. But I think we play off of each other and we don't even know it's happening because we're not totally talking about it. We're not being really honest about it. And I think the stereotypes that we're talking about men and even about women are part of what's getting in the way.
It's a big mishmash of all this come into play, right? And another one is like, just haven't been taught. Nobody was consciously taught how to deal with women or men, for the most part.
Yeah,
Taught
sure.
with how to deal with your emotions in proper ways, how to be in actual relationship and healthy relationship, right? Again, we just learn what we see modeled to us, whether it's from culture, whether it's from our family and our parents, right? Like that was our first relationship, was through our parents. Like, what do we see? How do we see our parents interact, right? And then we learn. The woman learned from the mom and from the dad. This is how a woman listens to a man, and this is how a man treats a woman. And then the man, the boy, learns, well, this is how my dad treated my mom, and this is what my mom. So this is what I can expect in the future. Sometimes it comes into play where the child are more conscious, more aware. They're already doing their sort of work as they grow up, that they start to seeing either or as being wrong. Like, they don't want to model that. Like, I grew up like, I don't want to be my father. Like, I didn't grow up. But the interesting part, which I've already spoken to, is spoken to like on my social media content, is the fact that, like, even though I grew up trying not to be like my dad, I still ended up like him in a way. I still ended up, the way that I emotionally react to certain things is exactly the way that he used to. And so that was a big shocker for me when I was like, whoa, wait a second. Like, I've gone my whole life trying not to be like him, but the deepest things, I'm actually like him. Like, I modeled his behavior. So again, it comes to that point where you have to be awareness to make that change, right? Have the self-awareness to say, okay, this is not the way I want to act, whether it's from my dad or from culture. It doesn't matter. It's like, this is not a healthy way of me moving forward.
Right. It's like we have to disconnect from those stereotypes or from those examples from childhood and society, and say, wait a second, I want to know how I feel about the way that I am. Detaching. This is so the work that I do with women is I talk about self-care, self-awareness, building up the inner self so that we have that awareness of, what am I? Who am I? What things do I want to do? What things don't I want to do? Because it's about me, not about anybody else. I think some of the healing maybe with men and women in relationships, and I don't even mean romantic friendships, family relationships, is that once we start waking up to, wait a minute, I think what I want is different than what society is telling me to be. I think that's when we can start the path to actually being beneficial for each other, in relationship, various
100%.
relationship.
And and knowing that what you want is okay to want it, right?
Sure.
No, like, right? It's one thing to realize, okay, what I was taught or what I've seen modeled to live life or be a certain way is one thing to recognize that, but and then say, hey, I want something different, but to know that you can actually do that, right?
Sure.
And be okay with that
Mm-hmm.
is another thing too. And then that is when you take the full responsibility. That's when you take, that's the self-care. That is the self-love, right? The respect for yourself.
Yep.
And it's like, no, okay, time to redirect my life into the path that I want, and not the path that I was told or shown that I had to take.
Right. And even outside of men and women, I think it's just societal. You know, when we talk about racism, sexism, heterosexualism or homosexualism, sorry, all of this stuff is, wait, do I want to act like this? Do I want to judge others? Do I, want to disempower others? How do I want to be? And when we talk about power, it comes out in many different ways. Like we're saying, being aware of your feelings, being aware of your self-definition. What is your intention in this life? That's power, not power over others. It's power within oneself to understand where you are and who you are and where you're going. And I hope that more and more and more men and women wake up to this. I've said for years, I've been waiting for men to be supported the way that women have, as far as working on themselves goes, being encouraged to be aware of who they are and how they're acting and who they want to be. And I think it's happening. I mean, what do you see from a transformational perspective working with men? Do you see that it's coming out more, that men are working on themselves more?
100%. I think that more and more men are stepping into taking full responsibility for themselves and healing their past and choosing to be better, better men overall, in every aspect, in various aspects. And interesting thing is, I'm just thinking about this. Sometimes a man tries to improve upon a certain aspect of their life, say if even their diet or their health, their physical health. But as soon as that changes, everything else changes. A lot of other things change too, or are forced to change because of that. And so, but yes, men are starting to do the work. Obviously, it's not at the rate that everyone would love to see, but this is how the world will change. It's not necessarily because unfortunately, men, the way that the powers to be in the structures out there, it's men that control, men that run these things. And so that when more and more men do the work, the effect will be seen through the world, because now, we are more and more men are going out there in these leading roles as leaders in the world, and now living from a more conscious, aware space, right? Where they're far more healed than the last leader in their position, right? So yeah, there is men out there, many men out there, but again, of course, it's not the same from what this perspective of women. Like, there's lots of women that's wanting to do better for themselves, be better for themselves. They're more into that sort of thing in the last little while, and the last many years, that this has come up as a thing, right? But I see them, that it's changing, but of course, one of the reasons why that I've stepped into really going out there and also support and like focusing on supporting men is because I know it needs to happen. It needs to happen. There's so many men out there in pain, and emotional pain that just like, my thought is like, you get one man to shift and heal and become a little bit better, that ripple effect goes to their kids, goes to their partner, like and everybody they come in contact with. And yes, it's the same thing for the women, but I think it's different for men because again, the role that men play in the world, right? On this planet.
Absolutely. Because we're in a male dominated world right now, it's almost more impactful. for men to become self-aware and more conscious in their emotional choices and action choice. You know, the word, the phrase herd immunity pops up for me when you're talking about that ripple effect. You know, it's like once we reach herd immunity, the male populations on the planet, like it's just going to be the way it is, you know, that men are aware of themselves. And, you know, I come from a psychic intuitive place a lot. And for me, I'm thinking, all right, we have to keep that energy has to keep spreading because eventually it will be the dominant energy of the way that the male species is in humans. Well, they'll be more aware. You'll be more aware. You know, and women have their work too. This isn't just all about, you know, hey guys, start working on your stuff. You know, women definitely, in a way, I think because we're stereotypically more emotional and we are more expected to be in our feelings, I almost think we get stuck there. And we don't, a lot of us don't do the stereotypical male thing, which is I'm make this work, make this happen, I'm going to fix this, you know, thing. And so I think women add to some of these problems by getting stuck in these emotional places. And then we can't allow the men to take, you know, to take a role in that emotional process themselves because we're so busy emotionally processing ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that.
So what I hear you saying is sort of like there's a challenges. Sorry, I was just saying. I think what I hear you saying is sort of like obviously there's challenges for men, but there are also the challenges for the women in the. Can you hear me?
You're there. It's a little choppy, but you're there.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, it's a little choppy on my end too. Sorry. Yeah, it's what I hear is like there's both ends of it, right? We both have our challenges. Women are in the emotion, and men don't even know how to connect to that properly, right? So it's just the starting point, right, of how to move forward.
Yeah. And I think, you know, in the work that I do with women, one of the challenges that I have is introducing the process in. I think emotions feed themselves, right? Because I think we've been taught that empowerment is being aware of your emotions and feeling them, and then hopefully getting people to hear your feelings, right? But then I think we get stuck in that loop. Instead of acknowledging the emotion, saying, okay, where does it come from? And how can I fix this in my life?
Yeah.
You know, we get stuck in the emotional part instead of, oh, I see it, let me figure out how to become better. And I think that getting women to that place of saying, okay, yes, I hear your feelings. These are really important. However, you're more than this. And let us look at what's going on in your thoughts. Let's look at what's going on in your choices. Who are you surrounding yourself with? What are you participating in? You know, that's when we get into activity. That's when we get out of that spinning your wheel. You know, oh, I just keep feeling depressed or sad, or I'm mad at my ex for 20 years. Okay, yes, that's great. Yeah. Know that, and now what? You know, and I think I don't know if men go to that place of, okay, I'm going to fix it now that I'm facing it. Do they kind of skip over feelings sometimes when they come to work with you and say, all right, how do I fix this, Kevin? Or are they ready to feel things?
I don't know. In a way, they're ready, because especially for men, they won't do it unless they're ready. There's some, again, like a pain. They have to fix that. They have to improve upon it. But I think either what men or women, it's sometimes difficult to face up to it, because the thing is not just that being aware of the emotion, but it's getting to the core of it. What is it trying to tell you? Like it's trying to tell, especially if it's coming over and over again, the same thing. What is this trying to tell you? What do you need to heal? Right? Who do you need to forgive? Like that's all the like the deeper things that have to be looked at. And again, but going to your question, I don't think it's men are not necessarily, okay, I'm ready to feel all this stuff. But it's just the process. And again, it depends on who's working with who you're working with directly, whether it's in a group or if it's one-on-one, will give you your how in depth you'll go. For me, I go to the core. Like, sure, we can go surface level, but that's only going to get you so far. You have to get to the core of what's happening. Why do you feel that resent? Why are you, like you said, like, why are you still upset at your ex? Right? So let's look at that. What's coming up for you? Like, explain. Let's get deeper, and until you get to the core, and then it's like, okay, that's it. Now let's move through that. Can you move through it? Can you feel it in your body? Can you name it? Can you, just get them to work through that? And part of that working through could be a forgiveness, could be a shift in perspective. I think a lot of people they hold on to all this pain, but they've never realized two things. One is that them holding on and not forgiving a person, whoever that person is, you're not hurting that person for not forgiving. Who you're hurting is yourself, because you're carrying that pain, you're carrying all that hurt within you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So that person still has it. That person could have died 20 years ago, but that event still replays, and that whole thing continues to perpetuate. And so that event holds you prisoner for so long until you let go, you do that work and move through that, right? So people forget about that. And then there was a second part that I'm already forgetting. Yeah, it's just overall, you have to work through that, right? You have to understand that. You have to get to the core of it. Without it, that energy will. You're just cutting off. I didn't know where I left off for you.
That's okay. It's you were talking about the energy of it, but I think the internet keeps skipping out. I think everybody in the world is on the internet right now, and it's just slow. So we talked a little bit about, if it's okay to talk about this topic, we talked a little bit about why it's like a public topic to talk about how men are abusive, but women also are abusive. We just don't talk about it as much. I really liked what you had to say before the interview about how maybe some of the reasons why it's not talked about as much, that men are getting abused by women as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. The abuse is both ways. But what I had said before was the fact that there's two things. One is the man, again, being perceived like what it means to be a man. If you go out and you start telling people that your wife or your girlfriend is abusing you of any sorts, it makes you look like you're less than, right? Less than, and you're a weak man. So therefore, you're not going to really speak up for the most part about what's happening, right? Because it's going to make you feel inadequate. So they don't really speak up about that. That's one part of it. And then another part, I'm trying to remember what we had talked about before.
That was the main that I found interesting. So whatever else you have is just bonus material.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, it happens. Why we see more men, like why we see the women getting abused by the men and not the other way around, is mainly because of, I believe, my opinion off of just talking about this is that, right, men don't want to come up and say that they're being abused by a female to another man, right?
Yeah.
Why do men abuse women more so than women abuse men? Is because the men haven't, again, back to stemming from what we've been talking about so far today, men has not been, in general, have not been taught how to work with their emotions, process their emotions, talk about their emotions. So therefore, they're stuffing all this pain inside. And so all they're doing is going out and lashing out that pain that they feel inside for them towards women, right? And also the fact of, like, how do they see women? Do they see them as a less than? Like, I'm a man, so I'm above, so I can do this to you. Because the man will not take that pain and that anger most likely to any other man and try and do the same thing to a man. Not happen, because they're going to get their shit kicked out of them for the most part, right? They do it to the women because they feel that the woman is weaker, right? So it's, again, where's our perspective? What do we believe in, right? That all comes into play with why. Now going further is like, why do men abuse in different various ways women? But again, it also comes the other way around. Women obviously abuse men, but we don't hear about it as much as we're saying.
Yeah, and it's almost doubly as sad, because I know there are women who get abused and don't talk about it because they're ashamed. But I think there's a lot more men who don't talk about being abused, or maybe don't even recognize that they're being abused because there's no language for it. There's not a real publicly accepted language for what it's like to be a man who's being abused by a woman. And that's sad. I wish that there was more awareness of that. And it's not just women abusing men either. I mean, I hear things about men in jail get abused by other men sexually, physically, and there's not a lot of that being talked about either.
It comes back to abuse of any kind. It's like the cliche term, but it's so simple, but yet so powerful. Hurt people will hurt people, right? So it doesn't matter if you're hurting a female or a male. We're just perpetuating that pain that we feel inside, that hurt that we feel inside. We want to make that other person feel that same way. And so it happens all over the place. It happens day to day, all over the world. Unfortunately, that's what's happening. But what the point of stepping up and taking full responsibility and doing the work on yourself is so that reduces in your own life. And so if everybody can just take responsibility for themselves and do the work on themselves, the pain that's in the collective will reduce, because we're doing our part. Our part is not to fix someone else. Our part is to work on ourselves. Right. So that's all it is, right? And when we do that work, we're no longer hurting somebody else, because once we hurt somebody, that person's in pain now. Now that person's going to feel a certain way, and he or she might turn around and now hurt somebody else, because it's just that ripple effect. So just like we can ripple hurt, we can ripple healing.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of it too. You're frozen right now. I don't know if you can hear me. But that's part of it too, I think, is when there is a power dynamic in a relationship, maybe the person who's taking more power gets focused on as the villain, instead of the person who is having power taken from them focusing on themselves and saying, I'm getting out, I'm working on myself. Like, we're such a blame culture that we tend to focus on the person who's causing the hurt. And I've been in that place too, where I blame the other person instead of saying, Melissa, what are you doing here? Turn around, walk away, and that's back to that topic in the beginning that we touched on, which is self-empowerment and self-awareness, and making empowered choices in your life, not over others, or yourself. Yeah,
it's 100%. It's like the main point is what you're saying there is that you can't wait for that person to change, right? For you to start feeling better, or for things to get better. You have to take that full, you have to take a stand for yourself and say, okay, what do I have to do here? Is it leaving the relationship, or is it just working on myself? And sometimes within you working in yourself and you empowering yourself, that dynamic changes, that energy within the couple changes, and you don't want to allow it, or that person just backs down because now you're confronting them, right? Or whatever way that confronting means to that relationship, but you've taken your power back, right? So that's all you have to do, is just you take full responsibility. Yes, you've been hurt. Nobody's taking away from the pain that somebody might have caused you, but at the end of the day, you can't wait for that person to make that change for things to shift, or wait for that person to forgive for you to feel forgiven, right?
right?
It's you.
Yeah.
It comes back to you, right? We're not responsible for the pain that others causes, but we're responsible for resolving it, for fixing it.
Mm-hmm. We're responsible for
Yeah,
participating in the dynamic, for sure.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think when we're waiting for someone else to change, or trying to get them to change, or waiting for forgiveness, we're placing our power outside of ourselves and saying,
We're
here,
outsourcing it. We're just
take
outsourcing
it.
it.
Take the power. I'm waiting for you. I'm just going to sit here and be miserable, you know. And that's sad for both parties, because I think you're almost
Yeah, 100%.
enabling the person to
100%.
consider or to continue abusing the power flow in the relationship. You know, when you're not willing to take power into your own life and say, hey, I'm going to be better, I'm going to work on myself, you're enabling the other person, you know, to take advantage of you. You know, so it's not always one person's fault. You know, two people participate in that. And I think I've said this before somewhere on all of my social media, where I think our society participates in abuse. You know, there are
Sorry, you
abusers
cut
that are.
off for the last couple seconds, so I'm not sure what you said.
I will try saying it again. Let's see if we can do it. I think society is actually more at fault for abuse than one individual can be, because I think in general, we watch it happen. We see people in disempowered situations. You know, in society, we turn our heads away. You know, we don't call it out as much as we should. It's almost like uneven power dynamics are just kind of a part of the way of life right now. And while, yes, men need to wake up and start facing themselves, and women need to start processing their feelings and moving forward, it's also society. We've got to stop accepting these messed up power dynamics between men and women, because it's just continuing, because it's somewhat accepted.
Yeah, there's two parts. I caught it a little bit because it was a little choppy, but in regards to the society and us and who's at fault or in that point, yes, we can change the way in which the power structure in society and how we view things. Like, you know, there's been lots of you know, the women's rights have gone up and all these things, and we've made improvements upon, which is great. But have you made it? All comes back, stems to you, because we, in the end, we are society.
Mm-hmm.
All of us are society, so we can say in general this is not right. But if it's still not right in your life, then we're not making any changes. If everybody is just continuing the same thing, even though in general we're making this right in general, like we're saying, we're going out there and saying this is wrong or this is right or this is how it should be, this is the rights, this is how things should go. But if we're not making that changes for ourselves, then nothing's going to really change, right? So yes, society, yes, how we see things and how we what's deemed right or wrong or acceptable, shifts can be made, obviously, but it comes back to us. Don't wait until that shift comes externally. Make that shift for yourself. Don't wait for nothing outside to change for you to change your life, because then you're always going to be waiting. There's always going to be a reason. There's always going to be an excuse. Just at the end of the day, is like, how much longer? If your life is not going the way that you want it to, if you're not happy, if you're not healthy, if you're not fulfilled, and you notice these things over and over again, you just have to ask yourself, how much longer do I want to live with this? Like, how much longer? How much longer do I need to be in this suffering? And then say, okay, dust myself off. What's the first step? What do I do? Who would I reach out to? What's my first step here? And then just take that step. And that's it. Once you take that first step, the next step will become clear. On and on and on. But your life will only change until you take that first step in full responsibility for yourself.
Absolutely.
And I was just going to say, and of course, it's difficult for some people to do that because of the resources, because of where they're at with their family, with their, you know, they have kids or whatever the situation is in their life. but we can never feel powerless. There's always something that you can do. There's always a step that you can take, even if it's a baby step.
Yeah.
There's always something you can do to better improve upon your situation in your life.
Agreed. And it's, knowing that society is a part of it is just an example of saying, okay, yes, this is happening in the world where, it's not fully accepted to abuse or be abused, but there's also not enough being done about it. And it is the individual. How many individuals will it take to really create a huge shift? We don't know. But all we can do is, one by one work on our stuff. Like you've worked on a bunch of your stuff. I'm sure, from just knowing you for a short time, you're going to continue forever. And I'm the same. And there's thousands of us out there, hundreds of thousands maybe, facing our stuff. We're making a difference. Like you said, the collective, I use that term sometimes, that we're making that collective change little by little by little by little.
100%. Yeah, that's how it goes.
I'm just checking our chat here okay, no comments yet. I just wanted to make sure there weren't any questions I needed to answer here. One thing I do want to ask you is, what's the scariest thing about being a man?
Never been asked that before. What's the scariest thing about being a man?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in specific to, go ahead.
Multiple things. Just what comes up for men, what are men scared of?
I think I touched upon one is truly facing themselves, facing the pain that's inside. That's what they're truly afraid. I think that is it. I think saying me as a man, I think I have other fears. But the scariest thing about being a man, I think in general, is being able to look at the hurt, the things that they've been hiding away for so long. Because again, if I do that, what's going to happen? What's going to happen in my life? What's going to happen to myself? Like, what am I going to experience? What am I going to feel? Mm-hmm. Because again, we're not used to that, right? But trying to think of another answer. What's the scariest thing about being a man for me? Scariest thing about being a man for me. I think it doesn't have to necessarily about being a man. I think the scariest thing about being a man, being a human being, is that I will not live my life to the fullest. Like I won't live up to what is truly possible for me, to what's actually, if I go a step deeper, is like I will not express my true self before I die fully. Mm-hmm. Like what's on my heart, what I've been, my deepest desires, what I truly want for myself and my family, like that will not come into fruition. Mm-hmm. Right? That this life as we know it, me as Kevin Benevides, as who I think I am, when this life comes to an end, is it going to come up to an end before this comes into play into my life? Mm-hmm. Death has been a big teacher in my life. Had many people that I loved very deeply pass away, especially in this journey of my 6-7 years. I've had all my grandparents pass, like the three of the four that were alive, and the one thing that came up when my grandmother who raised me passed away 4 years ago was there's not enough time. Like why am I waiting to do X, Y, and Z? Why am I waiting not to face this and that? Because there's no time. Although she passed away because of age and like just normal things. But that being said, for some reason that came up for me, was like, there's no time. Like this could all end tomorrow, and I'll never actually live out what I've wanted to live out. So that is a huge thing that I'll never I'll never experience or be. Also, as being, we're not human doings, we're human beings. Is to be a certain way and to experience certain, the deepest desires and be myself. Yeah, I think there we go. I went in a little deeper, and that's what that's for me, comes up for me.
Yeah, that's okay. That's helpful. My intention is for any women who might be watching to see, men are scared, and it's natural and normal, and things come up for men, and for any men who are watching, to see that other men do feel things and can talk about it. And that it can be scary to be a man. Women are scared a lot in the world. All over the world, we're scared for different reasons. And I think men are too.
Yeah.
We're not as different as we think we are.
I think a good point I like to come off of what you just said there and speak to anybody who's watching this in your group, any woman. We have to remember that we are human beings. There's genders, yes, there's male and female, but at the core, we are human beings. So we all want the same thing, regardless of where you live in the world on this planet, at what point in time you were born and died or experienced life on this planet. We all want the core, the same things. The core things that we want, it's all the same. And so what I'm trying to say by this is, like, yes, maybe you've been hurt by a man, but that doesn't mean that man, that there isn't men out there that that are good in a sense, are not like, am I sort of making sense by what I'm saying? Like,
I hear you saying
we experience everything. We all experience the same thing. Okay, in different, obviously, even one woman to another woman, it's all your personal experience from the day you were born to where you are right now. You lived life through your lens, through your mind and your heart, and through your experience. So we all see life differently. Not one person sees life the same, right? And so we all had our own experiences, and we're all going through certain things, right? And at the end of the day, we just want to be happy. We want to be healthy. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be loved. We want, obviously, clothing, shelter, food, the core, but like, we want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be loved. Every human being. That's it. At the end of the day, and that's at the core. At the core, we are good, and that's, I guess, another thing I wanted to express, and I haven't been able to. At the core of each human being, we are good. Doesn't matter if it's been the worst person who have created the worst pain in this world, certain leaders or whatever, have caused all these wars. Even that person, at their core, they're good. It's just what happened in their life to shift them, that brought so much pain for them to get away from their essence. And at our essence, we are love, we are good, we're God.
Yeah.
So it's just that, it's always remembering that, because it's hard when we've been hurt so much by another person, male or female, that we forget that something must have happened to that person for that person to treat me that way.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And that they may not be willing or ready to face it right now, but that they may, that they do come from a good heart, a good center, and that they have pain. They might not be able to face it and deal with it with you now, and you have to think about whether or not it's a place for you to stay. Is it good for you to stay with this person if they're not ready or willing to work on their stuff, or to face themselves?
That's a huge thing too. That if you are in a relationship and you choose to empower yourself, you choose to make that change and make changes, positive changes in your life, there will come a part where there will come a place and time where that choice will be made for you. Be like, I no longer resonate. Like, this no longer works. That person has to choose to rise up with you, or like, it's no longer a match, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, are you doing the best for you? If that's the best, then you You'll be able to part ways.
Okay.
And you'll feel at peace, right? Because you're doing your best you can. You've tried everything. And if that person doesn't want to be there with you, then that was their choice.
Right. We just had a question from Hugh Janis. He said, I think it's Hugh. Hi, can I ask questions? I just said yes in case you didn't get my typed answer. Then Hugh, yes, you can ask questions, of course. You can type that in. Hopefully I'll get it here. We're working from StreamYard, so there might be a little lag. But Kevin and I can keep talking until you ask. And if you ask later, I'll make sure your question gets answered.
100%. I could come back afterwards too and answer.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely feel free to ask whatever. Yeah, so I'd like us to just put these positive messages out there. I think we're putting a lot of positivity out. And by the way, that question looks like it was from YouTube, if you're looking for it online.
Oh, from YouTube? Oh, okay. I was looking on Facebook and I'm like, I don't see a question.
I read your mind. It's got a little YouTube.
And I think you answered, and when you answered it, I don't know if it went to YouTube.
Yeah, this is an interesting forum. It said yes for sure on YouTube and on a Facebook page. I don't know what it was, so here we go. Okay. So he said it's a long question, so I'm going to type it out in one flow. Okay, we can chat.
Yeah, we'll chat and we'll answer that question for sure before we
lots to talk about. So, but I love some of the messaging that we're putting out there. Obviously the group that I have is called Women Empowered, and the reason is because I want to create different definition for women. Women in general historically have been subconsciously or consciously defined as the lesser sex, the lower power sex, the lower power being. And, I want us to start realizing we actually do have power to choose the situations that we're participating in, to choose the way that we're thinking, to choose which emotions we allow to govern our lives. And I think that's where empowerment comes from. And we've hit on that a bunch of times in the conversation, which is great. And I think, I'd like to see men being truly empowered as well. I think men are force-fed power, but it's not always in a way that feels good for them or feels representative of who they are. And I think that empowerment comes from self-awareness too.
Yeah, a lot. I think in regards to power for men, I think men have been how to try and force power on others, but they don't have true power within themselves, right? So that's why they try and control the power externally, because that's what they've been taught, right? And but the true power is being able to harness everything that's inside of you, everything, all your potential, how you go about and interact with the people in your life, with your emotions, with your words, how you listen, how you love, how you're able to support another human being. That's power, right?
Right.
That's what real power is.
There's a book, I don't know if you've read it, Dr. David Hawkins. It's kind of a thick read. It's really scientific, but Power versus Force. And it talks
I've read it.
Yeah, really. I mean, some of it was like, oh my God, I can't take all this information in, but most of it was really, really poignant and powerful. Hugh, I'm just letting you write. He's writing a series of things, so I'll read it all to you once it seems like he's done. But I loved the concept of force versus power, because what we perceive as power is actually force. Force is when we're exerting power over or against an outside entity, person, whatever. But that's force. That's actually what force is, but we think that's power. Now, I think we really need to shift our perception of power to this. It starts here. It's within me. The power that I have is within me, not to create change outside of me, but to create change within me, to create self-awareness, to have self-impact. That's positive. That's power.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think Hugh's question might be done. And if I'm incorrect, please just add to it. But I'll read this to you, Kevin, okay? So he said, so it's a long question. He's typing it out. In a world with so many options out there, you can seek out the opposite sex easily through social media, dating apps, etc. Even when you're in a relationship with someone. How can a male-female dynamic ensure loyalty between each other? That's a big question.
How can, when you're in a relationship, how can they
ensure loyalty? So I think there's a few things we've talked about tonight that can lead into this question a bit when it comes to self-empowerment. For me, I'll start to answer it, and I think we should both kind of ad-lib.
Sure.
If that's okay with you, go ahead and add anything.
No, go for it.
But I think self-empowerment, so this concept of the self being made from within versus we are made who we are by the outside, right? This comes up in this conversation for me because we're inundated with options all the time. A lot of people out there don't even respect relationship anymore. They might see that you're married and they don't care and they'll still go for you. And so more and more, it's important for us to really connect to what we are within. Who do I want to be? Do I want to be the person who's pulled by strangers off course from this relationship that I would like to cultivate? Who do I want to be? Who does my partner want to be? And connecting to each other and saying, okay, what's your goal? Who are you? Who do you want to be? And, if your partner or you are feeling pulled away to something else, to create safe space in the relationship to say, hey, I don't know why, but I'm feeling pulled. By somebody I saw on Facebook who keeps messaging me. I've gotten messages from married men privately on Facebook, and I'm like, no, because I'm very clear that I will not participate in those situations. I've set that up ahead of time, and I understand that. So I will block those. But if I were with a partner, because I've done this work already, I will have the conversation with my partner and say, hey, look, maybe there's something, somebody interested, or I see this. As soon as you bring it out into the relationship, there's got to be a cultivated receptivity and honesty and trust to talk about it. Because once you call it out and talk about it, then it takes power away from that temptation. So I think I think
that's I think the first thing that came into my mind was communication. Like, when you're in a relationship with somebody, how are you communicating with them? Are you able to bring certain things to them, right? Like, without it being a huge thing, can you have an open conversation and say, even in your point, like, hey, somebody's messaging me, but this doesn't mean anything, but you can talk about it. Because there's certain relationships where you can't even talk about that because it's like jealousy and all these things already come up, that as soon as you say that, even if you're saying, I'm just letting you know this, but nothing's happening, it's already causing an issue. So,
right.
What's happening stemming within that relationship. But open communication is important. But I think it still comes, he asked, there's so many options out there. How do you stay sort of committed to that person that you're with, even though you have so many other options? Well, you have to ask yourself, why are you with that person? Like, I think you touched upon it too, is like, how do you view a relationship? Like, are you in this for fun? Because you're needy, because you think you need somebody in your life, right? It all stems back to you. Like, what's the relationship you have with yourself? And that's the main thing, is like, are you in a relationship for that person to complete you? So you're trying to find the right partner to complete you, or feel like you need somebody to make you feel a certain way and be a certain way. So you're trying to get that person to complete you, or are you going into a relation because that person complements you? Right. Because if that person complements you, then you're not going to be searching otherwise, because you're no longer needing another person to make you feel any way. You're already feeling, you already have a good relationship with yourself. So that person that's in partnership with you, they're just complementing your life and who you are. So whether you have them or you don't have them is good. So you're not really searching out there for anybody else. I think it comes back to, like, why are you in a relationship? If you're just gonna jump from one person to another person, There's no need. It's come back to, again, everything comes back to you.
Right.
Have you done the work for yourself?
Right.
Go ahead. You were going to say something.
It's okay to jump from relationship to relationship if you have agreements with those people that they're okay with it too. Right. I mean, we can have any kind of relationships we want to have, but it's about agreements and self-integrity. You know, what is integrity for you? Do you match up with your partner?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. We can have relationships.
We're having a lag.
Yeah, I agree. Of course.
Are you there, Kevin?
Hey, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep. You're back from the other universe.
You can hear. Okay. No, I was just gonna say, no, you're right. We can jump from like we don't have to stick to one relationship for the rest of our life. That's not the point. But if you're just jumping from relationships, when every time you gotta, you find somebody who you feel is better, then at the end of the day, you're not really doing any service to yourself or these people that you're jumping into relationships with, right? Like, have you really fully invested in the person you're in a relationship with now? Right?
Right.
Have you invested fully into that person?
Yeah.
To make sure that they are not the right person for you, instead of just be like enticed by something and just jumping there. And then, yeah, why are you looking at these things anyways? Again, it comes back to you. Like, why are you looking at these apps? Why? Yes, there's temptation all over the place, but if you truly can't come into that relationship because you love that person, you're committed to that person, and you want to see this work out, then you're good. And then, like you said, you have integrity to come to a point where you're like, this relationship's no longer serving my greatest good, what I'm looking for, right? And having that conversation, instead of breaking that person's heart or hurting that person by doing something behind their back, right?
Yeah. So he has one more question, but I want to make one more point on what we're talking about.
I'm turn on the light in the room.
Yeah.
You turn on the light. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am currently not in a relationship, but because I've been looking for a great relationship for myself, I'm waiting for the right opportunity. And because of that, I have been studying. I talk to couples who have made things work and who are happy, who've been together on the long term. And one of the things that is across the board true for every couple I've studied, friends of mine that I've studied who've done really well, is that they've been through hard times and gotten through them together. There's no way to skip around that. So each of those couples have hit times where they're like, man, I don't even know if I like this person. But the way they got through it was that they talked honestly about that, about the feelings coming up. What does it mean? Why is this happening? Is there something else underneath this feeling that we need to deal with? And these couples are some of the strongest couples I've ever met. And they've been together 10, 12, 15 plus years, 20 something years. And they all have these stories of working through these extremely uncomfortable phases together. I don't know your experience in marriage, Kevin, but
it comes up. Almost 17 years, so I've faced a lot of stuff. And coming from a place where I was a completely different person in the past to who I am now, and so so many things that we've had to face, and it comes back to that, like, are you able to show up to that person, have these conversations with your partner, and have these conversations, and then work through it. And then maybe you want to work on it, they don't want to work on it. There's your clear message sometimes. So like, this doesn't work, and that person's not willing to put in the effort, then they're not, because that this is not right the way it is. So then you're taking the steps, they're not taking the steps. That doesn't work, especially when it's within, like, between each other. Then, like, you have to do it together, right? So that'll give you your answer, but at least you're open, you're honest, you're in integrity with yourself, right? But what usually happens, like you said, that person 20 years married or 20 years in a relationship, every time they came up with that challenge and it was challenging, they rose up.
They dealt
pretty
with
close
it.
together. They dealt with it and they resolved it. And then the next thing came up and they dealt with it and they resolved it. And they just, you know what I mean? Like, even if one person's a little bit higher, but the other person's trying to also, they're trying to also work upon this thing. But one person stops doing the work, then that's where the issues come up, right?
Yeah, that's when it's really hard. So one of the questions that we haven't gotten to yet is also, what are your thoughts about the MGOTW movement rising online? All that I know about that is men going their own way, which it has something to do with not getting into heterosexual relationships because they realize that there's more negative impact than positive. Do you know anything about it, Kevin? I haven't heard much about it to answer it completely.
Never heard it. I've never heard of it.
Okay, MGTOW.
Never heard of it. The first time I heard of this.
I think that's the only thing that I saw. But Hugh, if there's something else about it that we should know, let us know. Men going their own way. I don't know. Heterosexual males choose to not pursue romantic relationships with women due to awareness of the potential negative consequences of doing so. I'm sure there's much more to it. I'd hate to answer it and not completely understand it. So maybe Kevin, we can research it and come back and type something in later.
For sure.
And then there's another question.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to be aware and to be educated. So there are definitions of alpha male and beta male. What characteristics, according to you, is an alpha male and beta male? And what, according to you, is an alpha male and beta male? Oh, I think it was repeated.
Honestly, so alpha male and beta male, I'm not really familiar with these terms. To be honest with you, the way that I perceived male and female, it hasn't even been male and female. It's been more like ego and spirit. So only until this year, when I said, okay, I'm going to go work with men and talk to them, I had to understand them. Because before, the way that I saw men was just like, for me, a man or a manly man was somebody who was strong and aggressive and physically strong with their presence and angry, and that was a man to me. So I never related to that because I was more, if you look in the feminine and the masculine energies and qualities, I was more feminine. Like, I've always been more in that sense.
Okay.
So alpha male and beta male, yeah, that stuff, it comes to the core of, you're a human being. Don't worry about that shit. I'll be completely straight from the heart. Don't worry about alpha male, beta male, whatever. Come in contact with who you truly are deep within. Work on that. Try and cultivate all of those qualities that you haven't been able to. Like, if you look at the female and the male qualities, both live within both male and female. But we've cut ourselves off to so many men have cut themselves off. And I think that's sort of what the alpha male and the beta, I think alpha male is like all strong male qualities. And I think beta is like more feminine. I could be wrong.
And it's dominant.
It's actually both.
Yeah.
It's actually both. Right? Doesn't mean to make you a weak man. No, you can still have strong. I'm gonna read one of my posts that I put out there, which will explain how I see this.
Okay, great.
And I think that'll be the answer of to this question for me.
This is like a whole video topic, because he also asked alpha and beta female, and this is like a whole topic about masculine and feminine. And
I think that's still the same thing. It comes down to, we have all these qualities, all these energies, the masculine and feminine, within all of us.
Absolutely agree. You're talking
right? So you have to, So you have to learn how to integrate both
Yeah.
qualities within you, both sides. That's how you actually sit in your true power. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is for both, whether it's male or female. But for man, this is what I'm concerned about. So this is for me.
Okay. Great.
And this is pretty short, but this is what it looks like. So a conscious man, don't have to be, for me, I'm not concerned about being beta or alpha or whatever thing. A conscious man is present, focused, and detached, yet is fully engaged. He is calm and expressive, yet centered. He is patient and strong, yet gentle. He responds to and understands his emotions instead of reacting or stuffing them down. He is driven by love, not fear or lust. He courageously moves through obstacles. He is committed to his visions and desires of his heart, and he is the light in the world. So that is the definition. When I said like he is calm and expressive yet centered, or he is patient and strong yet gentle. So the strength is the masculine, but the gentle is the female. He can still be strong, but he's gentle in his strength.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's being able to hold one, but still have the other to enforce, to be healthy. Right. That's how I answered that one. That's it.
Yeah. I think, the way our society defines male and female used to serve a purpose hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. But at this point, I don't think it really serves a purpose anymore. I think realizing that we all have within us everything and anything that we want to be, that's true freedom and power. And the question is, how do you want to participate as whatever you are without definition? I've grappled with the definition of femininity for my whole life, probably, because I grew up playing in the dirt. I carried sticks. I collected sticks that looked like guns. I thought it was cool. I never cared what I seemed like. I remember being a little girl. I was like 5 years old, playing with a bunch of my male cousins on tricycles outside of my family's house. And I went to my grandmother. All the boys had their shirts off, and I went to my grandmother, and I'm like, Nana, can I take my shirt off? Is this okay? 5 years old. You don't know the difference. And she said, sure. And I was like, okay. So I rode around with my shirt off too. I didn't know the difference. I just wanted to be the same. I wanted to feel like I fit. After a few minutes, for some reason, I felt weird. Nobody made me feel weird, but I felt weird, so I put my shirt back on. But it was really cool to be able to explore that. And that's kind of been my whole life is, I would much rather be out there with, doing archery and riding horses and, doing all that than, wearing frilly dresses and all of that. So throughout my life, what I've realized is that the true definition of femininity for me is power. It is the Amazon, warrior. It is the priestess who can see into the future. It is the loving mother energy. It is the mother bear energy who would knock anybody out of the way trying to hurt my kids. I am all of those things. And in order for me to feel that that's beautiful, I had to shut off what other people thought about how I am. Right? I could not see what I am as beautiful until I shut off the noise. Right? Because I've been told by partners in the past in different ways that I wasn't feminine enough for them, which really hurt. And in order for me to lose that pain, I had to say, you know what? Who cares what they think? I'm whatever I am, and I'm going to rock this shit. Whatever I want to be, I'm going to rock it. And I have arm wrestled men at the bar. That's fun. I don't care. But I've had to step to this stuff saying, well, I'm just being me. I don't know what else this means, but I'm just being me. Yeah,
I get it.
So I think Beta and Alpha is old organization.
Yeah, and again, it's the only other thing I would say is not a lot of people, but I also hear the conversations of well, men are losing their strength, like in embracing and being okay with the feminine, we're losing our strength as men, or like losing that potency, and we're becoming too weak, right?
Right.
But it's not, that's not at least that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you can be that strong man, you can be that assertive man, but it comes from a place of love. It stems from that place of, you also can bring in the female into that, so that you're not hurting, because the part of the male is that it's so strong, so powerful in that sense, that you hurt others because of that. But when you can still be strong and be able to protect your family if something came up, but that's because it's warranted, not because you just feel like throwing your masculinity out there. And right. So it's being able to balance. It's all a balance.
Yeah. I'd like to wrap up pretty soon if he doesn't have any.
For sure.
It's late for you too, where you are, but one of the things that I've always thought, or I've thought for years within myself, and I've said at different times, is that I think that men are beautiful. And I don't just mean visually, I mean men are beautiful beings. And I mean that men's power is beautiful, men's emotionality is beautiful, men's ability to take care of their kids is beautiful, to cook and clean alongside with their female partner is beautiful. Their ability to step out in front of a woman and be more strong than her if he needs to be is beautiful. It's all beauty to me, and the fact that there's this dichotomy of male and female, I find it very confusing, because I want to perceive men as beautiful within and without. I want to look at a beautiful man and say, wow, look at how beautiful he is with his children. I want to recognize his beingness, who he is, and not base that on his power.
Yeah, beautifully said. I love that. Yeah.
So, and as a woman, I also want to be embraced for my power. I want to be embraced for, going out and digging in the yard with my male partner and lifting logs and throwing stuff around with him too. And, be able to do that without being shamed.
100%. Right. You can still you're able to do that. And then when the time comes, you'll be able to allow your femininity to come out in other ways, right? But it's not shaming. It's not shaming the other things that you do. There's like, wait a second, women don't do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Right. And one of the things that I'm working on that's going well is seeing my femininity, seeing my power as femininity, my ability to protect my children, even though they're teenagers. If I need to, I can still do it. I respect that femininity within myself, as well as the femininity of, I will cook and clean and keep the home for my kids, and, curl up really small within my man's arms. And that's all of it is female.
Yeah. Love it. I think you wrapped that up exactly perfectly where you started and where you titled the stereotypes. It's breaking the stereotypes of what it means to be a man and a woman, and be able to, what we're saying is being able to embrace both for both genders.
And erase pain. Erase pain by doing that.
100%. I love that.
Well, we could probably talk for hours about this stuff. It's deep. It's deep stuff. Hopefully some of the people who have come and gone have gotten something from this. I did see that people came and went throughout the whole thing. It's a long talk, so not everybody has time for that. But hopefully some of you will come back and get some nuggets from this. Kevin, thanks so much for this.
Thank you. And I also hope the same thing. That's what I always hope when I have conversations with people online, and any content I put out there, is that somebody gets something out of this and it can help them better improve upon themselves and their lives. And like, as you said before, if anybody drops a comment, especially if it's on the Facebook, for me, I'll be able to go on there and, respond back if you're watching this on the replay. And thank you for having me on.
Yeah, anytime. So this will be up on Raise the Bar Wellness on YouTube forever, unless YouTube blows up. It will be on Raise the Bar Wellness on Facebook, and then also on my Woman Empowered group, which is private. Ask questions in the future, totally, especially if it's on YouTube. Kevin and I will both have access to it, or on my Facebook business or Kevin's pages. But if you see a question for me, let me know, Kevin, and vice versa. I'll let you know. I think that's it, but I'll end the broadcast, and then once we end, Kevin, if you want to wrap up with me privately, we can do that. Okay? We're frozen again.
Sure.
You got it? Okay. All right, bye everybody. Thank you so much.